Welcome to Passion and Profit. If you're a small business owner or solo entrepreneur, this episode is for you. It would not only help you achieve your business goals, but it will also help you enjoy the process. Let's get started.
So when you're taking the advice of other people and you are deciding where you want to be, again, rooting back to your story, rooting back to knowing who your audience is and who your customers are is going to allow you to make better decisions in the future about where you invest your time and where you invest your money.
Passion and Profit with your host, Delmith Morales, the podcast for makers and manufacturers. Welcome to another episode. I'm your host, Delmith. This podcast is created by Inventora, the all-in-one inventory system for makers and manufacturers. Today, we're going to be talking about how to make more money and sell more of your work with Lucy Kelly. She is the owner of Bloom by Belle Monili and the founder of the Marketing School for Makers. She is a experienced woman, is an organic marketing expert for creative businesses with over 20 years of experience in marketing and speech and language pathology. Lucy helps her clients define their audience and create customer-centric marketing plans so that they can build a customer base of enthusiastic and loyal buyers. So I know that we have a lot of things to learn from you, Lucy. I'm really excited to discuss this topic with you today. So I'll leave you the time to say hello and give us and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, thank you so much. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. It's funny, there's such a long, winding introduction to how I came to be who I am, but I'll give you the short version of it. So I live here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania with my husband and high school sweetheart, Eric, and our daughter, Evelyn, who will be 8 in January. I started my handmade business back in 2010. I was looking for something to do to keep my hands busy, and I was going to be turning 30 in the fall. So I took that summer and decided to take some classes and figure out what to do. And long story short, the jewelry making was the one that stuck. So when I started, like most makers, it was for hobby. It was to do something fun to keep myself busy. But pretty quickly, people started asking me if they could buy what I made. And I thought, well, heck yeah, that would be fantastic. The idea, even 13, almost 14 years in, the idea of someone paying me their hard-earned money for something that I crafted with my hands is just amazing. Like, it blows my mind. I love it. So prior to that, my educational background, I have a degree in marketing from Duquesne University, and I went back to Duquesne a few years later. I got my master's degree in speech and language pathology, which are two very different areas of study, but have come together really nicely with this handmade business. And it has put me in a position today to not only have expertise in marketing, which helps with the selling and the business end and the communication end, but it also helps me to be able to identify both the verbal and nonverbal behaviors of customers. In my speech pathologist life, my area of expertise is early childhood language development. So I am skilled and trained in identifying the reasons why young children aren't speaking and what their patterns are and what their nonverbal communications are. So those things kind of came together nicely because as a maker and a handmade seller, we are constantly trying to make sure that we are meeting our customers where they are, that we're communicating with them and the way that they need to be communicated with. And that's how we build audiences of, small but mighty, raving, loyal fans and repeat buyers. So all of those things have come together in my own handmade business called Belle Monili, which has grown and been successful. And in 2018, I had started to receive a lot of requests from other makers and artists to coach them on how to grow their business because they saw that I was having success, that my sales were increasing year over year, that I was doing better shows, that I was selling more online. And I knew that I didn't have the bandwidth to do individual coaching. But I thought, well, I've seen people put programs together before, so I'm going to figure out how to do this. And that's what I did. In 2019, I worked on building the Marketing School for Makers. And in January 2020, it launched for the first time. It used to be called Get Online, Grow Online, and recently rebranded to be more in alignment with what it is students are learning. And now we have an amazing community we have a free group with a little over 16,000 handmade business owners and growing. And we have had thousands of students come through the Marketing School for Makers. And now one of my main missions is to help makers and women kind of stand in their power and see themselves as business owners and only do events that they love and make products that they love and sell products that they love and find the people that are going to love and appreciate it as much as they do.
I love that. I love how you connected all of your experience, and I believe that you honestly didn't have idea of how are they were going to be connected, and I think that's the beauty of uh, being you. Like, I mean, that's amazing. So, um, now, well, I'm very curious about everything that you have today for us. I'm just looking to learn, and also this is such an important topic for because sometimes we're just stuck, like we don't know what else to do. And hearing this type of conversations for makers, it's very refreshing because it gives you like more ideas, and sometimes it gives you the light of the things that you actually really need to do to move forward.
So, first things first, one of the things that I have found, it is funny that is this long kind of winding, seemingly unrelated series of events that leads to today. And I think anybody, any maker, your story is kind of the most interesting part about you. The things that you make are really cool, but how did you come to do this? How did you learn to do this? Why did you start making that? Those are the things that set you apart from the crowd. And those are the things that nobody else has. So if there's nothing else I can impress upon you, every maker out there who's thinking the market's too crowded, nobody's buying, everybody makes this, nobody's going to buy another candle, nobody needs another necklace. The thing that sets you apart is your story. And the quicker you can get into conversations with people where they're sharing their story with you and you're sharing your story with them, the faster and bigger you'll see your business grow. Because those are the reasons why people buy handmade products. I make upcycled statement vintage costume jewelry. Nobody in the world needs this. Nobody's life depends on it. Nobody will survive because of it. Nobody, needs it to meet their everyday basic needs. And yet I can't keep them in stock. And the reason is because I have relationships with my audience where they know, yes, I do make jewelry and yes, I do sell, but they also know how I got to be me. And they feel like they've been a part of that path because I've shared that story with them. I've shared it with them on social media in our conversations. I've shared it with them in my emails that I send them periodically. I've shared it with them when I'm standing at a craft show and we start to talk. And I've also asked them to share their stories with me. So I know that one of my customers, Lisa, is a new grandma. I know that Jennifer just sent her oldest daughter to college because I listen. It's a two-way street. This engagement and this conversation is a two-way street. And I think in business, we as makers, we like to talk, or we at least like to know other people's stories because we want to find out how'd you get to make that. But we feel like business means you have to be 100% just about your product and just about selling. And that works if you're in a corporate office. That even works if you're a big box store like Amazon or Walmart or Target, because people that are going there to make those purchases are typically making them to fulfill a need, not to fulfill like a want or a desire or a status. Whereas people rarely come to a maker to fulfill a need, like a basic functional need. We are looking to fulfill wants. We're buying gifts. We're supporting local. We're buying handmade. We're supporting women for whatever reason. Also, I think that one of the things that just even in the last year, I really focused on adding to my messaging and really speaking about is the fact that it is 100% okay and in fact necessary for you as a maker to make money. It's okay for you to be profitable. It's okay to pay yourself salary. It's okay to charge so that you and your business are making money. And if you don't, you cannot afford to continue running a business. And after a while, you're either running a very expensive hobby where you're paying people to take your products when you really get down into your numbers, which is painful to realize, or you just price yourself out and you can't afford anymore to spend all this time to make all these products, to go to these shows, only to come back in the hole because you don't understand how you just worked for 3 weeks and have no profit to show for it. And I think that we get in this mindset of we want it to be fair, we want it to be accessible for everybody. We don't want to overcharge. But really what it is we don't want our audience and our customers to judge us based on the price that we put our things at. It almost feels like when we charge what we're supposed to charge for your expertise, for your materials, for your time, for your effort, we kind of, I think, subconsciously think like we have people out in the world going, well, who does she think she is charging that? And this is probably one of the biggest barriers, I think, in business to makers really making it and having long-lasting, profitable businesses, is they're not confident enough in themselves to start charging and pricing their products so that it's profitable. So those are my my two things. Like, one, making sure that you are authentically engaging with people, because if you do that first thing, if you are communicating with people and you're starting relationships and you're sharing stories, and these are people that are your community, that are supporting you, they're not going to have any problem paying you when your product is priced profitably. And when you are making a salary and when your business is making money, they're not going to question that, because you've already established yourself as honest, reliable, trustworthy. They know that you're not going to charge them, $100 for something that really should probably only be $20. Does that all make sense? So I could ramble about this for a long time.
I think you have a really good point. At the beginning, we just start looking at the industry, right? We do our research and all of that, and we say, okay, but maybe my point or my differentiality is going to be that it's going to be cheaper or something like that. But honestly, what you mentioned at the beginning is what is going to make you different is your story, your background, because that's definitely different for everyone. So we focus so much in the price, in the product, and we don't go back and we say, okay, why am I starting this? Why am I doing this? Why is this makes me happy? I need to reflect this with my customers, because the people that are going to buy handmade products are honestly trying to support other people. They're not just looking for something like that you can find at Walmart or Target, right? They're looking for something unique, and they're also not looking at the product, but they're looking at your brand and yourself. So I think that's a good point and perspective that we always need to have in mind for us to keep going and to not lose track of the things of why are we doing and creating the things that we are doing, right?
Right. Yeah, it's, the funny thing about being in this industry, in this handmade business industry, and I always tell people, if you think that you're going to just hop into this and start selling this some handmade stuff and get rich, you're in for a disappointment. Because most makers, especially ones who have longevity, we're doing it because we love it. We maybe learned how to knit with our grandmothers. Maybe like me, you took a jewelry class because you love beads and you wanted to figure out how to use them. Maybe you make soap because you had eczema or your daughter had rashes and you couldn't find anything in the store. There's always a story behind it as to why you make it. And when you are able to communicate that story with your customers and help them to identify with that why, you take yourself out of the race on price. You remove yourself from, you're not competing with Walmart anymore. You're not competing with Target anymore. And it's not that there's anything wrong with those stores, but when you're running a race against them, you're going to lose every time because you're not playing on an even playing field. When you move over into this value, into this sharing your why, and into this personal brand where you're consistent and reliable, all of a sudden it's a wide open field.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's why we need to have that in mind always, because we can lose track and we are just going to say, okay, my products aren't selling, let's put them in a lower price and I don't care.
Right.
And that is where your brand starts losing the value that it has, right?
Absolutely. And I've seen, this there's so much to this whole framework, and there's so much to this whole business. And there are things that feel like they should work, and we do them, and they don't work, and then we just move on to the next thing. But it's really important whenever you do anything in your business to look at the whole experience and take lessons from it so it can be better next time. So I see a lot of people who go out and do shows. When I say shows, I mean art fairs, craft shows, vintage markets, wherever it is that you are taking your stuff and setting it up and selling it is what I call a show. So there are great shows where you go and people can't give you their money fast enough. And we love those shows, and they're fantastic. And there are shows where it's crickets and you couldn't give your stuff away. And those shows exist at the same time in the same place for different people. So I could take my work up to my local church or school or whatever and put my things out and probably couldn't give it away. I probably could not get $10 for this necklace, right? Because the crowd that's shopping at that show is looking for more traditional crafts. They're not looking for something at the price point that I'm in. They need to be educated a little bit more on upcycling vintage jewelry. They just don't get it. It's not the right crowd. But if I have a person next to me, and let's say they are a crocheter and they do crochet tea towels, or maybe they make bowl cozies, or maybe they make a local sports team thing, and they're selling like gangbusters, right? Same place, same show, same booth fee, but they knew who their audience was, and they were in front of the audience that connected with them, that wanted that product that they were making, that understood the value of handmade, and that didn't need to be educated anymore on what it is this thing is. Whereas me, same place, same crowd, that's not really my crowd. That's not the person who is really into vintage. That's not the person who's into statement necklaces. That's not someone who can just buy that on a whim and really think about it, because my things really do better at indie craft fairs or vintage markets. But the important thing to take away from that is I see this so often all over the place. I always have my ear to the ground in Facebook communities and in artist markets. And I see people post to ask, what do you think about this show? And as with anything, opinions are extremely subjective. So I might answer that question and say, it was terrible. I couldn't give away anything. It was a total waste of 8 hours. And the person next to me will give the review for the same show saying, this was my best show ever. I walked away with $2,000. It was fantastic. I'll definitely be back next year. So when you're taking the advice of other people and you are deciding where you want to be, again, rooting back to your story, rooting back to knowing who your audience is and who your customers are, is going to allow you to make better decisions in the future about where you invest your time and where you invest your money. So while that show, yes, cost me probably less money, it might have been $25 or $30 for the table, versus this vintage show over here, which might be $500 or $600 for a table, my return on this is negative, but my return over here is going to be positive, because now I took my lesson. I know that my customers aren't at that show. So instead of going to 4 shows where my booth fee is low, I'm going to go to the one show where I know my audience is, and I know they're going to be buying my work because I'm connected with them enough to know where they're hanging out, where they're spending their money, where they're going, what they're doing.
Yeah. And I think it will happen that you're going to be in a market that worked for you last year, and this year is going to be a complete failure. So I think those are part of the experience, right? Part of the journey. I think we all need to have that experience that it didn't work. What did I do different? Or we need to evaluate, but also, like you mentioned, and we always, we wrote a blog post, I remember, where we advise people to do their research first. And maybe if you can, just go visit the market, for example, and see what type of people goes there and what type of booths and people are selling, so you can have a better idea. And honestly, the last step is to try.
Yeah.
And just test the waters and see, okay, this one didn't work, and that's fine. I learned from it, and I'll just move forward, right?
Yeah. And it's important too to note when you go to these shows and you go with a plan for kind of making the most out of it, and you're not just going for cash, you can get a lot more out of these markets. So in that example of if I'm at this local show and it's just not my market, people aren't there to buy statement jewelry, they're there to buy gifts or more traditional crafts, it's not a total loss. Because when I go to a show, yeah, sure, I love coming home with money in my pocket. I mean, that's fantastic. But I'm going with different goals in mind. I'm going, of course, like one, you want to practice your setup. Now, if I have a really great setup, I'm going to use that for content. I'm going to make sure that I leave time in my setup to take a booth shot, to ask my neighbor to take a picture of me in my booth, to take a video. Because you know what? If you're at a show and there's no one there, you've got lots of time to get lots of great pictures. Not the reason you went, but it maximizes your time and your effort there. You're also going to meet other makers and other sellers there. The best way to make connections with people and to learn new things is to talk to them. So if you're at an event and it's slow, talk to your neighbors, assuming they don't have someone in their booth, of course. Go talk to other vendors. And I don't mean to complain about, the show stinks or the show's terrible. How are you doing? You can do that if you want to, but your time is going to be much better spent if you start talking to them about, hey, what other events do you do? What's working? What's not working? Tell me about your business. And if you get really strategic about it and you really know who your customer is, you can look around those shows and you can see other makers, other artists who are selling things that you think your customer would be interested in. And you can go talk to them because hey, you know what? I think my customer would like this. I sell upcycled vintage jewelry and I see someone over here who's making really cool hand-sewn bags. So I'm going to go over and talk to her and maybe find out what events she does and see if we can collaborate and talk, because that comes out of that. And finally, when you are at a show, the number one, and this is something that I teach in my workshop, this is something I teach to my students, this is something I say every opportunity that I have, your number one priority, besides making money, should be to get people on your email list. Because once you have someone on your email list, you have the opportunity to connect with them over and over and over again. So that might mean, no, I didn't do well at this show because someone needed to think about it for a while. But you know what? If I got them on my email list and started sending them regular emails and they started visiting my website and they started thinking, well, that was really cool. I wasn't ready for it then, but I keep seeing these necklaces and I keep seeing this girl on social and I've gotten to know her more. I think I really do want one of those. That's valuable. That's how you start getting a sustainable business and how you start building a customer base of people who come back again and again. If at every show you go to, you're consistently inviting people to join your email list, and then you're implementing that email marketing program, you will very soon never have to go to one of those shows again. You'll say, you know what? I need a little bit of cash, so instead I'm going to run a promo and send an email instead of I need to go and pick up a show this weekend.
Absolutely. I think that is such a great tip. Email lists are now the thing. I believe that it's such a strong and powerful resource that we have, and it doesn't take a lot of your time, and it's so easy. You can do it in your home, just sitting there and preparing something very special for your people and your customers. And honestly, for me, that connection that you can bring on the email list, it's something that creates loyal customers.
It does.
So you can choose to do markets with that goal, like focusing on grabbing more people, getting more people to join your email list, and then just work on your email list and build your engagement with them through that. Social media, I think Instagram, Facebook, those are amazing platforms as well, but the content can go to everyone, not your target audience, right? With the email list, you have that advantage that you try to get into the people that are actually looking for something from you. I think that's amazing. It's a really good advice that everyone should, even if you want to sell on a market or on a show, you always need to have that in mind, just to say, okay, I'm going to be selling, but I'm also grabbing their contacts. So that way I can grow my business and bring more customers to it, right?
And what happens, not to bring up old things, but when COVID happened, and it just so happened I launched for the first time when COVID was just starting to ramp up here. When COVID happened, artists, makers, handmade sellers who relied on shows for income were completely shut off. I mean, the hammer dropped and there were no shows. We weren't sure how long it would be, and it turned out to be almost a year and a half. So those people who relied on art fairs, markets, craft shows to give them a place to make money, not only didn't have those outlets, but didn't have any way to make money, right? Most of them were people who weren't set up as traditional businesses where they got a W-2 for themselves. So they were left out of a lot of the support options that were available for small businesses out in the world. If they did not have a way to reach their customers, a lot of them closed. A lot of people simply went out of business. But the people who had email lists were able to reach out to their customers and try to build that back up. Even the people who had social media accounts were able to kind of quickly get people over to their email list, reach out to them, get a website built, and continue on to grow. But further to that, now we're back into the swing of things, and, shows are happening and people are shopping. People are going out and shopping. They always will. But when you have an email list, so if anyone's listening to this and you're thinking, yeah, you know what, I'm good. I'm just going to do shows. I don't want to send emails. When you have a strong email list, and it doesn't have to be huge, it could be 50 people, it could be 10 people. If those are people and every single person on your list has said to you, yes, I like you and your business so much that I want you to come into my inbox, in my email, one of the most private places in my world, and tell me more about your business and your product. And if that isn't a hot lead, I don't know what is. So when someone gives you their email address and you are able to connect with them and build up this relationship, what you're doing for yourself when you go and do shows is you are, as time goes by and this list grows, you are going to be able to start to predict your sales and your success at an event. And the reason is, let's say I'm in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I do a lot of shows in Ohio. So I have a nice list of customers in the Columbus area and in the Cleveland area. So I know if I'm looking at an event, if there's a new event that pops up or I get invited to sell somewhere, and I look and I say, okay, this is a new event and it's a vintage style market and everything is shabby and all girly. And I think, this show and the venue looks like a good fit for me. And I know that I've got this great list of customers in Columbus. So I know that at the very least, even if this show doesn't bring me one single new customer, I can lean into my community. I can email my list. I can say, hey, Columbus friends, I'm going to be in Columbus. Come to this show and come, shop. Check this out. Check out my booth. And they do. And they will. And they're thrilled for you to share with them something great that's going on in their community that they might not have known. So as you start to build this list and reach out to these customers, if you're someone who wants to do shows, this is probably the fastest and the best way for you to take control of your success at the show. Because when you go and you do a show, it is assumed that when you pay a fee, part of the fee that you pay for is marketing. But that's not always the case. When you take back that control and you say, you know what, I'm going to do this show and I'm going to bring my people, it really just helps to increase your business, solidify your foothold in the market, and your customers will see it as a benefit because they get to come out and have a great day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are the values that we actually don't see until we start practicing all of that you have mentioned. We don't see the value of the email list. We don't see it. So that's why we don't start doing it. Or probably we don't know how to, right? Sometimes that happens as well. But once you start, you can just take so much from that it can bring a huge change into your business.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That's something that we really need to start doing. If you're not there yet, you should start implementing this into your business because definitely it's a game changer.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's absolutely a game changer. And once you start, I think, again, a lot of these problems with email marketing are in our mind. We tell ourselves, I already get 2 emails and I don't want to be spammy. And that's fine. People do get a lot of emails. But unless you're gearing up to start sending spam, remember, anyone who is giving you their email address told you that they want to hear from you. So if someone gives you their email address and you get it because you asked them, you say, would you like to join my email list? It's very easy and simple. If they gave you their email address and you have their email address, and then you say, you know what, they said that they wanted to hear from me, but I think that's not what they meant. I think they get too many emails in their inbox. I think they are going to think that I'm spammy, so I'm not going to send them emails. They have basically told you what they wanted, and you were like, nah, I know better. I'm not going to do that. No, no, let them go.
Yeah, and I think something really good is that after you grab all the emails that you in the show, that you need to send something like right away. You just not want to leave them waiting for something,
Right.
because they will forget. They're not having you in their mind forever. But if they see something right away, they will say, yeah, I remember. I'm going to check her out. I'm going to check her business. And maybe they're going to purchase something, right? So that consistency, it's not going to be spammy. It's going to be something that actually they're going to be glad to receive in their emails, right?
They are. And the really great thing, so when you're emailing, and again, this goes, a little bit off base here. So when you're emailing, for anybody who's doing email marketing, at least in the United States, and I think pretty much everywhere, you are required to use what's called an email service provider, or sometimes abbreviated as an ESP. You cannot just open up your private inbox, even if it's a business email address. Like I can't just open up Gmail, type in everybody's email address, and send it a marketing email. There's a variety of reasons why, but what you need to know is you're not allowed to do that because it violates some laws. So you have to have an email service provider. One of the main reasons you have to use an email service provider is because in each marketing email that you send, and a marketing email is a newsletter, it's a sale notification, it's a notification of shows, whatever you're sending to them, they have to have the option to unsubscribe. At the bottom of every single marketing email, there will be a button that they can click and unsubscribe. They need to be able to do that without having to contact you. And when someone unsubscribes, it doesn't mean anything other than they just didn't want to get that email anymore. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're bad at business. It doesn't mean they don't like your product. It doesn't mean anything about you. It just means they opted out and they decided to unsubscribe. And I know I see a lot of people get stressed about this too. And it's like, it has nothing to do with you. For whatever reason, I have students who have paid me for my course and they have unsubscribed from emails. Doesn't mean anything about me. Maybe they just decided they didn't need to get emails from me anymore. They have my website bookmarked and they'll just go to the website. Or they already bought the course and they worked through it and they don't need support anymore. And maybe they'll come back someday, but don't get hung up on those details of, well, I send emails, I don't want people to unsubscribe. And then they do unsubscribe and I tell myself all these stories. No, just it is what it is. Let it go. Move on to the next thing.
That's good. You should just focus on the things that are actually going, like making you go forward and all of that, and leave those things behind because they're not going to bring something positive to you, right?
Right.
Also, I know that you told me that some of the social media metrics that we need to focus on, I think one, it's the email list and all of the data that powerful resource brings with it. Which ones we can forget?
Okay. So this is another thing that I'm big on. So for me, not for me, for everybody, social media is to be social. Now there are different schools of thought and people who teach things in different ways. So when I say this, understand that it's my opinion and my opinion based on what has worked for me and what works for my students. It's certainly not the only way. There are people who teach social selling. I'm not one of them. Social media is like a kind of like a neighborhood coffee shop or like one of your kids' games where you're sitting and talking to parents. It is intended to be social. In 2018, when Mark Zuckerberg decided they were going to change the way the algorithm worked to favor the content of friends and family, what that meant was people who joined Facebook, joined Instagram, joined whatever, They joined because they wanted to be able to have conversations and keep updated with friends and family. They wanted to have social conversations. They wanted to be able to connect with people to see what was going on in their lives. And for a business, which I've had my business, I think 2010 was when, at the end of 2010, you started to be able to have business Facebook pages. Because when I started on Facebook, you had to have a .edu email address. That was when I was in grad school that Facebook started, which is funny because it's really dating me. But so social media is a place for you to meet and engage with people. It is a place for you to have conversations with them. It's a place to share, some people call them content pillars, some people call them, subject matters, whatever it is, to share those pieces of you and your business and your story, whatever pieces you choose to share. You don't have to share them all, so that your audience can get to know you, so that you can have back and forth conversations, so that you can kind of put your stake in the ground of, these are the things that I'm interested in. This is who I am as a person. This is who I am as a business. And let's have conversations and find out who belongs and who doesn't, because it's important to know, as a consumer and as a social media user, it's important to know where you belong and where you don't. And again, I'm not saying this because there's an idea of like a right person or a wrong person, but my jewelry brand, for example, very girly, vintage, flowery, gardeny, like a biker dude who likes to work on trucks is always welcome, but probably not going to find anything that he's interested in. We don't have a lot of shared points of interest. And that's immediately clear in my content and in my conversations, because I'm consistent with my messaging. I'm consistent in the kind of content I share. I'm consistent in my topics. So when you use that social media platform that you have to really start conversations with people, for you to share something on social media and have someone comment, and then you go back and forth and have a conversation, that's what they call engagement. It means you have an engaged audience. So that's on your content. But then the piece that a lot of us miss is you also have to go out as your business on other people's content and share and engage in an authentic way. It means you have to comment, you have to support, you have to share people's posts, you have to add your insight or answer questions. It's a two-way street. And it's so when you talk about organic marketing and organic reach, this is the way to do it. Because what that does is it gets you that base layer of engaged people who then, after you've had these conversations, after you've met, after you've gotten to know each other, after you've kind of warmed up this virtual coffee shop setting, then you can feel comfortable to say to your audience via a post, you know what? I have a VIP email list. Here's the link. If you're interested in connecting further, you can go on and this is how you sign up. That's it. That's the secret. there's no, behind the scenes trickery. That's it. When you are offering value to your audience through content that is engaging and that lets them feel welcome, then they are going to feel more comfortable taking that next step of joining your email list. Or when you do share photos of your work or behind the scenes videos of your studio or a snapshot of you setting up at a show, they're going to be engaged enough to ask you questions about what they're seeing, to go to your website to find out more. Then, once you get this good organic base going of engaged audience members who are then going onto your email address or to your email list, when you're ready to share a sale, have an event, do something on your website, you can feel confident putting that out there and getting a good reaction from them because you've already established yourself as a friend. Whereas if you are using your social media purely for selling, which is certainly a strategy, but not one that works a whole lot for makers, it's like standing in front of, walking into that coffee shop, pulling out your tote bag of products and going, all right, buy my thing, buy my thing, buy my thing, buy my thing. Here's my thing on a white backdrop. Here's my thing on a piece of marble. And here's my thing hanging on a wall. Which one of these would you like to buy? That's what it sounds like when you just start selling. So once you get this good organic base set, it can be small but mighty. You are then setting yourself up to be ready to scale. Because the next question I get, which we didn't really talk about, but the question I get a lot is, can I just run ads? Can I pay to run an ad and get more people to my website? An ad will only get you more of what you're already getting. So if you're not getting any engagement and you're not getting sales, an ad will get you more expensive, no engagement and sales. But when you have this great organic base of people who have engaged, people who have joined your list, people who've visited your website, you can use that as the base layer of your ad, because your ad will then amplify that, which is, like I said, way off of center of the conversation here. But I can't stress to you enough the importance of really tuning in and being genuine and treating your social media audience socially, treating these people as your friends, because they are. I mean, what's a closer friend than the person who gives you money and supports your business? When you look at them that way, it's much, much, much easier to do.
Yeah, and I think with this type of strategies, we're not going to see results right away. It's going to take time. So just to start, like you said, those social media platforms are just the way to start growing the engagement with your audience.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I didn't answer what you said, to which ones to pick and which ones to forget. I went off set. Here's the great thing. When you go back to knowing who your audience is, and meaning knowing that this is the typical person that engages with me, this is her lifestyle, this is her age bracket, this is, I always use my friend Jennifer, who's one of my best customers, as an example. Jennifer's a mom. Her kids are elementary, starting into college now. She works at home. So I know all of these things about her. So on the surface, that's okay. I have that information. What do I do with it? Well, I know, one, that Jennifer, based on my past activity and her demographics, she's on Instagram, but she doesn't use Instagram to make buying decisions or to see products. She uses it just to kind of scroll through and see fun things. She's on Facebook to engage, to share, to comment, to buy things. That's where she engages most on social media, and that's where she makes her buying decisions, which is important for me to know. It's also important for me to know her demographics, because it lets me know, okay, Jennifer's busy during the day. So if I'm out here posting my rock star gold content at 1:00 in the afternoon, well, I'm missing her because she's taking care of her kids and working. But if I do it at 9:00 at night when the kids are in bed and she's drinking her wine and watching Friends like I am, I'm going to catch her because that's when she's scrolling. But you choose your platform and you choose the place that you want to show up based on where your customer is showing up, not on what's trendy. So if I I don't do TikTok. I have the TikTok account. I don't do TikTok because people who buy my jewelry are not on there making buying decisions. They're on there for entertainment. So if I went out in the world and said, hey, where should I be right now? What's the thing that's working on social media? A lot of people would say TikTok. And if I went and spent my time, sure, I'd get views and sure, I'd probably get some engagement, but I made that decision based on what's trendy, not based on my perfect customer. And when I strayed away from my perfect customer, I end up wasting a lot of time. So for anybody who feels like you're missing out because you're not doing Reels, or you're missing out because you're not doing TikTok, you're not. You really just need to be in a place that your perfect customer is, where they're showing up and where they're engaging to ultimately make their purchasing decisions.
Yeah. And I think you don't need to know all the details of each one of your customers. Once you start seeing like they are going to start joining your community, you're going to see a pattern, right? So you can start choosing what works for like the most part of it. So I think probably you can start thinking, oh my gosh, but how can I know the story of everyone that is following me or something like that? You will start seeing all the patterns, and social media can give you some hints, and your email list will also give you some data. So I think all of those things are going to, and if you understand them and start applying those data into your strategies, are the key to have a successful marketing plan for your business, right?
Right. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Lucy. This was so good. I think we could keep talking and talking, but this was so helpful. Just to end this conversation, let us know how people can find you and what things can they find from you.
Sure. Thank you. So thank you for having me. This was great. Like I said, I get so passionate about it. I could just go on forever. So you can find me at Bloom by Belle Manili on all socials, and on my website is bloombyBellemanili.com. Right now, I am running a free workshop called Make, Market, Sell. And you can find registration for that on my website. It's free at bloombyvelmanili.com/workshop. And next Tuesday, September 11th, I am opening enrollment for the fall 2023 class of the Marketing School for Makers, which is the marketing program where I teach you the ins and outs of the entire strategy that we just kind of glossed over here, how to find more of your customers, engage them, content, email marketing, building your website. It's all covered in the Marketing School for Makers. And anyone who registers for the workshop will get a great workshop. And at the end, you'll hear more details about that. So you can find me at any or all of those places, and I would love to connect.
Love that. I think we all should join that. Uh, I think you had so many valuable information, and we just talked like the general things. So I think your course is going to be perfect if everyone needs it. So everyone, there you have my conversation with Lucy. Go check out Lucy and her business in the link of the show notes. I hope you find this episode helpful. Don't forget to subscribe, give us a follow, and if you like the episode, please share it with your friends. Thank you for being here, and until next time.
Thanks for having me.
And if you're interested to learn more about Inventora to help you keep track of your retail and wholesale sales, visit Inventora.com.